God reveals a shocking truth you must know today about your faith. Few knew what truly happened that night. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the ancient city of Jerusalem. It was a night unlike any other, whispers of prophecies dancing on the lips of the devout. A chill hung in the air, thick with anticipation and fear. On this night, the unseen would reveal itself. In a small room, dimly lit by flickering oil lamps, a gathering of followers felt the walls tremble with tension. They glanced at one another, eyes wide. Could it be true? The rumors spoke of visions, miracles that defied logic. Yet, in the depths of their hearts, they knew something monumental awaited. Among them was Peter, his hands trembling, a lump in his throat. He had witnessed acts that shattered their understanding of the world. The time was ripe, and he felt the stirring of something divine. Time stood still as the sound of footsteps echoed outside. A moment later, the door burst open, revealing an enigmatic figure wrapped in a shimmering cloak. Gasps escaped their lips. Was he truly the one spoken of in the scrolls? The man raised his hands, a calm yet authoritative presence. "Why do you doubt?" he questioned, voice low yet powerful. The followers stood at a crossroads between faith and disbelief. If they accepted him, the world they knew would change forever. What lay ahead was uncertain, punctuated by a rising sense of urgency. Miracles had already surrounded him, blind eyes opened, the sick healed. But this night promised something more profound. They could feel it in their bones. But what would they sacrifice for this truth? The very fabric of their beliefs was on the line, each heartbeat loud and frantic. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the stillness. A figure stumbled into the room, eyes wild with terror. "They're coming for him." Panic ensued. Murmurs of confusion arose. Who was this figure? What danger approached? In that moment, every breath felt heavy. Courage fought against fear. Would they stand by, shadows in the night, or would they step into the light? The weight of their decision hung thick in the air, an invisible storm brewing. As the mood shifted, tension quaked within the room. Would they dare to follow him on this unknown path, not knowing what awaited? Could they withstand the storm of upheaval this night was sure to bring? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the hush following the scream, the atmosphere thickened. The followers exchanged glances, their hearts racing in sync with the growing tumult outside. It was not merely the sound of footsteps approaching but also the urgent echo of destiny tapping at their door. Peter took a step forward, bolstered by his overwhelming sense of purpose, yet confusion hung about them like a fog. "What is happening?" he asked the newcomer, his voice steady despite the quaking inside. The figure, a young man, leaned against the doorframe, breathless, struggling to form the words that fluttered just out of reach. They know. The priests and the soldiers, they seek him, the one who has come among us. They wish to silence him before he can reveal what he knows, he stammered, the urgency spilling over into his gaze. Suddenly, the weight of the moment became perilously clear. Not only was their leader in danger, but their very faith, the beliefs they held dear, faced imminent threat. Questions surged through them: who would stand in the gap? Who would protect what felt sacred? As the noise of the approaching crowd grew louder, a profound realization washed over Peter. The man before them was not merely a messenger, he was a harbinger of the deep fears they all harbored about the truth, an awakening that could dismantle everything they had ever understood about faith and love. It beckoned them to choose, follow blindly or confront what lay before them. "We cannot let him face this alone," Peter declared, igniting a flicker of hope amongst the group. Others began to murmur in agreement, though the trembling lips and furrowed brows revealed their trepidation. The burden of belief weighed heavily on their shoulders. The cloaked figure raised his hand once more, captivating their attention. Your hearts are wavering, yet within each of you flows the essence of something far greater than fear. It is the essence of liberation, he said, voice resonating like a melody that stirred long-dormant souls. Yet liberation comes with a price. Have you ever pondered what you would forfeit for the sake of truth? He asked, and the room fell into a contemplative silence. What were they willing to sacrifice? Comfort, safety, perhaps even their lives? The stakes had never been higher, the answers never so elusive. Peter could almost taste the bittersweet air of change, the possibilities swirling like dust in a sunbeam, beautiful yet foreign. Just then, a loud bang reverberated through the walls, and the door rattled as if it might burst open any second. They had no more time to ponder. Fear and courage danced a dangerous waltz around them. Will you walk this path of trial and trepidation? Will you follow the way, even if it leads you into the storm? The cloaked figure asked, inviting the tumultuous emotions to collide. As they braced themselves for what was to come, a new question emerged, a question rooted in uncertainty yet yearning for understanding. What was the truth that beckoned them, hidden in the promise of this night? The air crackled with an electric tension as the followers stood, poised between action and hesitation. The pounding at the door had become a relentless surge, as if the very world outside demanded to be let in. Peter turned to his companions, searching their faces for strength and resolve. Their expressions, a kaleidoscope of doubt and determination, mirrored the storm within him. Brothers and sisters, he began, his voice rising against the clamor. We cannot shrink back now. We have witnessed the miracles, heard his words that bend the very fabric of life. He has shown us love and compassion, a vision of a world unshackled by sorrow. Must we hide in fear when the promise of that vision awaits us? The cloaked figure lingered by the door, absorbing the energy of Peter's call. Your hearts bear witness to the truth, he affirmed softly. But understand, faith is a journey through the unknown. Each step you take may lead you into greater peril, yet it is also a step toward the divine. With every pulse of doubt that rippled through the assembly, a sliver of resolve glimmered alongside. They sensed the truth, the central lesson embedded in this chaotic moment. Faith was not the absence of fear but the strength to move forward despite it. Suddenly, amidst the drumming of fists on the wooden door, a calm voice surged forth, cutting through the noise. If he truly is the Messiah, should we not be ready to defend him? It was John, voicing what many had kept buried deep. His eyes shone with fierce loyalty, igniting a fierce companionship among the group. Yes. Peter responded, the vigor of his declaration echoing off the walls as hope began to bloom anew. We stand together. We have seen the light he brings. This is a moment for action. Yet as the words left his lips, an unsettling shadow crossed the cloaked figure's face, and his gaze grew somber. Courage, but tempered with wisdom. Are you prepared for the sacrifice that such courage demands? For in the waves of this storm, you may be called to lay down all you hold dear. A hush fell over the gathering, their breaths caught in the weight of impending loss. They had long pondered this calling, yet the tangible reality of choosing it loomed before them like an open chasm. Would they truly embrace their faith when faced with persecution, the lash of a soldier's whip, or even the chilling embrace of death? The door shuddered with a new attack as voices on the other side demanded entrance to seize the one they sought. The cry for action mingled with the palpable tension in the air, a bittersweet cadence of hope and anguish. Together, we shall not falter, Peter declared, extending his hands to the others. Let us steer this vessel through the storm. Whatever lies beyond this threshold, let it be known that we are united in our purpose. Yet deep within, a gnawing uncertainty flickered like a candle in the dark. Would their united front withstand the tempest of judgment awaiting them? What truths were they yet to unearth about themselves as they stepped into the unknown? At that moment, as voices outside swelled with fierce determination, a single question persisted like a whisper on the wind. What deeper revelations of faith awaited them in the shadows, ready to be unveiled by their steps into the chaos? As the fervor within the room swelled to a near palpable warmth, the disciples clasped hands, a tightly woven fabric of fear and fervor. Outside, the rapping on the door turned into a cacophony of shouts, filling the space with a sense of foreboding that clung to the air like fog. The cloaked figure, standing in the flickering shadows cast by the dim oil lamp, began to softly chant words that seemed far older than the very stones around them. "Listen, children of light," he said, his voice steady against the mounting storm. "The path you tread now is but a reflection of the trials that lie ahead. In these moments, you shall confront not only the powers outside, but also the tempest that stirs within you." Peter and John exchanged glances, aware that each heartbeat echoed the weight of their choices. The thought loomed large: what truths about their faith would they have to confront? The cloaked figure stepped closer, letting the fabric of his cloak fall slightly, revealing an intricate tapestry embroidered with symbols of ancient wisdom, each thread whispering forgotten narratives interwoven with trials and grace. "Do you seek power?" he asked, his dark gaze piercing through their bravado. "Or do you seek understanding? For the two are often at odds. The one who suffers understands the heart of the universe, and in suffering finds strength profound. This is not just a tale of sacrifice, but an invitation to a deeper communion with the divine." The disciples hesitated, the words wrapping around them like tendrils of smoke. They had come together under a banner of hope, yet the implications of the cloaked figure's thoughts skittered through their minds, igniting doubts that had been long buried. What power lay in understanding their suffering? And were they prepared to unveil what it might demand of them? "Understanding is a mirror," the figure continued, his eyes glimmering with a wisdom age-hardened. "It reflects both your innermost desires and your fears. Each time you face the shadows, you will be reborn. The spirit is forged in trials, yet still, so many resist this rebirth." Peter's heart raced, a tempest of thought battling without and within. What might happen if they truly faced their fears? With voices outside calling for an answer, he felt the urgency grow. Those who sought to break through the door were no mere strangers, they were the harbingers of a stark reality, a world that had grown cold and distant from the warmth of grace. "Should we not hold to our hearts?" A voice emerged from the group, a woman whose eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "What of the promises we've witnessed? What of the healings and the words that brought light? Are we to forsake those glimmers of hope?" "Hope," the figure echoed, "is not found in the absence of fear, nor in the presence of power. It is born in understanding the intricate dance between despair and love. Only until you are ready to face the shadows that cling to your hearts can the light be fully embraced." The pounding on the door was relentless, a mantra echoing the discord around them. The urgency climbed, knitting together the threads of fear, loyalty, and an emerging understanding of their shared fate. Yet in this moment of fervent reflection, the enigmatic figure's words unraveled a deeper line of inquiry. If they were to confront what lay beyond, what sacrifices would each hold dear? And would their understanding of faith alter irrevocably as they stood upon this precipice? In that charged quiet filled with anticipation, the final, piercing question lingered in their hearts: would they emerge from the shadows transformed, or would the barriers they had built hold them captive, even in the face of the truth they now sought? As the thunder rolled outside, the cloaked figure stood unmoved, his gaze lingering on each disciple, probing their very souls. The atmosphere grew heavy with emotion, and the weight of unvoiced questions clung like mist. Peter, his resolve hardening, felt a spark ignite within him. The echoes of the past moments of faith, healing, and profound transformation pressed against his memory, each carrying a wisdom that begged to be revisited. "Is our faith a thing to be held tightly, then?" he ventured, stepping forward. "Or is it meant to be shared, even in fear?" His voice trembled but held a note of defiance against the cacophony pressing at their doors. The figure nodded slowly, and the expressions of the others shifted, reflecting an unspoken acknowledgement of this fundamental truth. "Faith, Peter, is a river," the figure responded, his tone calm yet alive with intensity. "It flows through the heart, carving paths through the landscape of despair unto hope. You are called not only to possess faith but to let it carry you forth, rippling through others." But just beyond the walls, the chaos surged. Shouts morphed into the sounds of splintering wood, the door quivering under the weight of anger and confusion. "Then what must we do?" John asked fervently, the urgency of the moment shaping his words. "How do we protect not just ourselves, but those we love from the storm outside? We've witnessed his miracles, yet are we to stand idly by as threats converge? there lies your greatest challenge," the figure replied, a slight sadness threading through his tone. "To protect is not to hide, it is to face the tempest with courage imbued by kindness and understanding. Understand that the storm is but a reflection of the tumult within each soul." The disciples fell silent, contemplating the storms of their own hearts. The cloaked figure's words wrapped around them like an embrace, yet fear still lingered. What truths about their connection with the divine did they fear inhabiting? "Each moment you meet opposition, remember this: the world may tremble, but hearts bound in love cast shadows long and wide." The figure's voice grew more profound. "Only by embracing each trial together can you inspire those outside to find their way back to the light." Matthew, clutching his scrolls, let a thought escape. Can faith be both a shield and a sword, then? Are we called to defend our truth while being open to the wounds of others? The question hung in the air, poignant and raw. Each disciple felt the truth of it stirring deep within. The figure regarded him with a knowing smile. Indeed. Faith is an extension of love, a force that invites conversation rather than contention. To wield it as a weapon is to misunderstand its nature. It is a call to embrace the fractured pieces of humanity, to bind them in compassion, even when the echoes of fear threaten to drown out hope. The shadows in the room seemed to shift in response to the discussion, each flickering flame in the oil lamp casting an illumination deeper than mere light, a reflection of their own internal explorations. Outside, the ruckus continued, but in this sanctuary, a different battle raged. As the cloaked figure intoned the last of his wisdom, a profound silence fell among them, inviting introspection. Yet even amidst the revelation, a question emerged, piercing through the lingering uncertainty. If love is their armor and faith their guide, how then would they step into the storm, embodying both strength and vulnerability in an encounter that could change everything? The silence that enveloped the disciples felt almost sacred, as though the atmosphere itself was holding its breath, anticipating the pathway of their collective decision. The flickering shadows that danced upon the walls cast the figures of the disciples in a tableau of contemplation, each face a mosaic of doubt, fear, and, amidst it all, an emerging resolve. The cloaked figure stood still, his presence exuding a profound sense of purpose. It was as if he could sense the simmering emotions within each heart, like the tide rising before a storm. Peter broke the silence, his voice barely a whisper, yet resonating with the weight of his conviction. "We have followed, we have witnessed miracles, yet why do we now grapple with this fear? Is it not we who are meant to carry forth his light?" The figure turned, his gaze penetrating as if he was peeling back layers of each man's soul. "Ah, but therein lies a truth often overlooked." There was a stillness in his voice, laden with a depth of understanding. "Faith is not merely about the light you carry, it is also about the shadows you confront. For in acknowledging those shadows, you come to know the breadth and depth of that very light." As he spoke, images of the blind, the lame, and those tormented by unseen forces surged in the minds of the disciples. The very people they were called to serve represented the shadows of the world, wounds too raw to see, suffering hidden beneath the surface. The cloaked figure continued, "Each time you face these shadows, you touch the essence of your faith. It is in the vulnerability of your shared humanity that hope is forged anew." Matthew, ever the contemplative one, pondered aloud, "So, we are to embrace both our faith and our fears. To acknowledge that in our trembling moments, it is not the absence of faith but the presence of our shared experiences that binds us." "Precisely," the figure affirmed, the flickering light catching the depth of his eyes. "It is this very acceptance of uncertainty that makes your message powerful. Those outside endure storms far greater than your own, yet they yearn for a flicker of hope. Your faith can offer that, but you must first be willing to engage with the uncomfortable facets of existence, the doubts, the pain, the questions that lay heavy upon the heart." John's brow furrowed with a reflection of concern. How do we invite them into this understanding when we ourselves are still learning? How do we speak to those in the throes of their own storms without being swept away ourselves? The figure drew closer, his presence almost tangible in the dim light. "Your strength lies not only in your answers but in your shared journey. To stand at the edge of uncertainty, hand in hand, emerging together into the light, this is the testimony that will bear fruit. Are you willing to be vessels of grace even amid your own storms?" The disciples exchanged glances, the weight of their calling hanging palpably in the air. Each one of them had encountered their own turmoil, the weight of betrayal, denial, and fear lurked within them, ready to surface. The cloaked figure seemed to understand their hesitation, and his voice softened. "You are not alone in this fight, the divine walks with you." It is in these moments of grappling with the unknown that true faith is revealed, not as a possession, but as a shared journey. In the stillness that followed, the echoes of the chaos outside became a distant backdrop to their evolving understanding. The cloaked figure's firm yet gentle insistence inspired a sense of courage igniting within. They felt the intertwining of their stories, a tapestry woven by the hands of a builder whose vision extended beyond their current frailty. "What, then, is required of us?" Peter murmured, the question reverberating in the sacred silence. It lingered there, unanswered, as they contemplated the implications of united faith in uncharted terrain, both daunting and beautiful. As each disciple pondered the weight of his words, a profound realization settled in. Perhaps it was not merely their faith that was at stake, but their very existence as instruments of change. And with that realization, another question rose gently within their hearts. In a world filled with shadows, how might their own light illuminate paths for the weary to tread? In the growing stillness, the disciples felt the atmosphere shift, as if a veil were being lifted. The cloaked figure's words hung in the air, sparking an internal reflection that illuminated their darkest doubts. They remained bound together, souls intertwined in a web of shared fears and aspirations, yet the path before them was shrouded in uncertainty. "Have you not considered," the figure began anew, "that this journey calls for more than mere action? It beckons for a deep reckoning with the heart itself." He paused, and in that silence, shadows flickered once more, shadows darker than the night outside, a manifestation of their internal struggles. James, normally steadfast and unwavering, found the courage to voice a thought that had plagued him. "But how do we confront this reckoning? What does it mean to truly face our fears when they lay roots deep within us?" His question was greeted with nods of understanding from the others, for many of them harbored quiet dread beneath their courageous exteriors. "The first step," the figure replied softly, "is to recognize that your fears do not define you. They are but echoes of past pains, mere reflections of moments where hope felt distant. To confront them, you must be vulnerable, not only with one another but also with yourselves. Reflect on your personal shadows. What burdens have you carried that inhibit your ability to support others?" A heavy silence enveloped them, and each disciple turned inward. Andrew shifted restlessly, his heart heavy with memories of moments lost. "I fear my own inadequacies because I know I am not the strongest among us. How can I, filled with such unease, help others find their way?" The figure's gaze remained steady, piercing through the veil of doubt. "It is your very admission of inadequacy that makes your faith authentic. The world does not seek perfection but authenticity. Embrace your vulnerabilities, Andrew, for therein lies the key to connection. When you share your struggles, you open the door for others to do the same. You create space for healing." Matthew's brow furrowed again, this time stirred by deeper contemplation. Could our fears, then, be allies instead of adversaries? What if they are opportunities for grace? If we speak to others from a place of genuine understanding, perhaps we can weave a narrative of hope for those who feel similarly lost. The figure nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly. In this exchange, you create a tapestry of shared experiences that illustrate the true essence of faith and unwavering hope found even in the midst of uncertainty. Yet, what can you offer if you fail to confront the shadows within?" They found themselves at a crossroads, each grappling with their own haunting thoughts. Peter's mind raced with visions of the crowds they were destined to encounter and the burdens they carried. Yet, what if they lash out in anger? What if they see our own chaos and turn away? Then let them see. Let them witness your humanity. It is not your competence they seek, it is your sincerity, the figure implored gently. Faith flourishes in the hearts that are open to embrace dialogue, hearts that are willing to stand at the threshold of another's pain. In that moment, the disciples began to understand, fear could catalyze connection if they allowed themselves to be seen not as flawless messengers of divine truth, but as simple, flawed beings journeying together towards understanding. Just as a flicker of hope began to illuminate the shadows of their hearts, a sudden wind rattled the shutters, and the distant sound Of the tumultuous crowd surged once more a reminder of the struggles that awaited them. The cloaked figure raised his hand, and the sound hushed momentarily, the chaos fading into an almost profound stillness. "Are you ready to step into the uncertainty?" he asked, his voice echoing the gravity of their call. "To confront your doubts and reconcile them with the light you're meant to share?" Peter felt a stirring deep within his spirit, but a lingering hesitation clung to him. What if, in our efforts, we fail? What if the light we carry is snuffed out by the very storms we seek to calm? "Failure is not the end, my friends," the figure replied. "It is merely a part of the journey, an invitation to seek deeper understanding. Will you allow vulnerability to shape your faith and unravel the mysteries that lay before you? Or will you shy away, choosing silence over confrontation?" As the weight of his question settled upon them, clarity began to emerge. Faith requires both action and introspection. The journey ahead was not solitary, it would only be enriched through unity, vulnerability, and shared illumination. The counsel of their hearts swayed beneath the tension of impending choices as they wrestled with the dawning realization that transformation is anchored in the very shadows they feared to face. What would they choose to illuminate? And, in that illumination, what truths about themselves and their faith were they yet to discover? As the quietude enveloped them, a profound sense of anticipation felt like a tangible thread binding the disciples together. Their hearts pulsated with the rhythm of uncertainty and expectation, a melody that played softly beneath their fear-laden exterior. The cloaked figure's gaze swept over them, searching for signs of resolve. "Has the weight of your contemplation brought forth any clarity?" he probed gently. Matthew glanced at Andrew, whose expression reflected the vulnerability of their shared introspection. "I sense a deepening, a stirring to embrace my own tumult. If these fears can weave connection, then perhaps my troubles will indeed serve a higher purpose." "Yes," the figure replied, a hint of warmth swelling within his voice. "But know this, the light you seek to share extends far beyond the tales of triumph. It flourishes within your willingness to share the challenges you face and the perception that each disappointment carves into the soul. Revelation often springs from the ashes of despair." Peter stood tall, yet his voice quivered. "Will this revelation change who we are? As we share of ourselves, will we not become mere shadows of our former identities?" A flicker of uncertainty clouded his eyes, urging him to seek reassurance. "Your essence remains intact," the figure affirmed. "In truth, sharing your struggles does not diminish you, rather, it offers the world an authentic glimpse of God's work in progress. Inside every fear lies a possibility for a faith that is relatable and raw, one that can reach the hearts of those seeking truth in their own brokenness." As the words hung around them, an understanding enveloped the group. Each of them bore scars, pieces of their stories carved out by trials yet intertwined in their shared mission. The act of confronting their fears would not fracture their spirits, instead, it held the potential to deepen the collective experience of grace, the divine mystery they found themselves wrapped within. But the weight of their mission loomed large, drawing them nearer to a precipice they dared not overlook. James spoke up once more, his voice steady despite the tremors of his heart. "What do we do about the ones who refuse to listen? Those entangled in their own fears, unwilling to connect or find beauty in the darkest moments." The cloaked figure took a moment, the silence thick with consideration. "What if their refusal to see the light in their own darkness is precisely the story awaiting your touch? Remember, even when light seems fleeting, your simple presence may draw them closer. The truth is not always a light, sometimes, it is a steadfast shadow that offers comfort. Will you not hold space for them?" The disciples exchanged glances charged with a conviction that ebbed and flowed within them. They were becoming conduits, feeling the spiritual mystery unfold through the illumination of their truths, both light and dark. A spark ignited, bringing forth a yearning to step into their unfolding narrative with courage rather than retreating into the safety of silence, and yet, Peter felt a weight upon him. But what if, in that space of holding, we falter? What if the burden of their shadows becomes too great? Can we truly bear witness to their pain without losing ourselves? "It is in this very question where the divine revelation can reside," the figure replied with profound assurance. "You might not always have the strength to carry another's burden alone, but remember, together, as a united body, you can support each other, and through this union, you will discover new corners of faith that bend and weave through the gaps of fear. A transformation began to take root within them. They could feel the nebulous tendrils of hope and understanding easing the tension in their hearts, allowing a warmth to flower amidst the fears. The promise of deeper connections awaited them, yet the awe-inspiring mystery remained weaving through uncertainty, inviting them forward in faith. But as they braved this uncharted territory and the city beyond beckoned with deafening cries, they realized something was still unresolved. As they prepared to step into the approaching storm, they wondered, what profound transformations awaited them on the other side of their fears, and would they be able to embrace the grace that awaited their faltering steps? As the dawn broke, casting a golden hue upon the landscape, the disciples felt the stirrings of a new day mixed with an uncertainty that weighed upon their souls. The cloaked figure had left them with thoughts heavy as lead but light as feathers, and as they gathered their belongings, a tension hung thick in the still morning air. They stood at the threshold of revelation, yet apprehension lingered, urging them to pause. Where do we go from here? Thomas mused aloud, his tone a mixture of wonder and dread. What if tomorrow's light unveils truths we are unprepared to accept? The question hung in the air, imbued with a sincerity that reflected the collective anxiety among them. Trust is the bedrock of faith, the figure had earlier reminded them. It is not always about understanding, but about embracing the unknown. Yet, trusting felt daunting. For many, this leap into vulnerability meant silencing their self-doubt and stepping forward into their emerging identities. James broke the silence, his voice resolute yet still trembling with uncertainty. If we are to meet those entangled in their own fears, how do we prepare our hearts for their struggles without losing our own? Preparation is not in the answers you craft but in the willingness of your hearts to embrace the complexities of another's story, a resonant voice replied, drifting through the air. It was unaccompanied by a physical form, yet it felt close enough to touch. Are you ready to meet those you once feared? They will seek the authenticity in your truth, even if it feels shattered. As they turned, heads instinctively tilted upward, they caught sight of a lone hawk soaring high above, a sentinel of grace surveying the land, embodying a freedom that they felt both drawn to and frightened by. Peter watched the hawk for a moment before speaking again, his heart racing. But what if, in revealing our transparency, we cut too deeply into our own hearts? Can we risk experiencing the pain of others, knowing it might rend the fabric of our own? At that moment, the cloaked figure returned, his presence as grounding as the earth beneath them. The beauty of vulnerability is not in its perfection, but in its honesty. As you share, so too will you heal. Through your shared scars, the light will weave itself into the very tapestry of your faith, an interlacing of stories bound by authenticity and resilience. Each disciple contemplated this profound unveiling. Their experiences felt like shadows and light intertwined in a dance far too beautiful to articulate. Their fears remained palpable, yet intertwined within was the flickering flame of hope, a candle fighting against the wind. Andrew turned to the others, his voice piercing through the tension. What if we are not supposed to have it all figured out? What if our uncertainties forge deeper connections with those around us? A spark of recognition ignited in each heart as they contemplated his words. Could their shared struggles illuminate the paths for others? Would their willingness to be vulnerable not only brighten their own lives but also cast light upon those mired in darkness? In the stillness that enveloped them, the truth began to unfurl, an awareness that transformation often began with questions left hanging in the air, echoes of faith weaving through uncertainties and shadows. Yet, as dawn unfurled fully, a heaviness returned, a concern nestled deep within each of them. They could not help but wonder as the sun began its ascent, what will be revealed in the hearts of those they meet, and could the light of their faith withstand the shadows of others, or would they lose themselves in the depths of those they are called to help? The crowd's voices grew louder, crashing against the door like waves against the shore, and yet within the room, a profound stillness enveloped the disciples. Their breaths synchronized, aligned with the pulsing rhythm of their collective fears and hopes. It was a moment suspended in time, a crossroad of destiny echoing in silent anticipation. Peter, emboldened and aware of the weight of his words, stepped forward once more. What if the very truth we seek to share becomes a burden too heavy for us to bear? How can we share our light when shadows lurk in our own hearts? The question spilled forth, raw and honest, resonating with the vulnerability brewing among them. the cloaked figure regarded him with a tenderness that transcended time and space. Shadows are not to be feared, Peter. They are but messengers of truth, catalysts calling you to embrace the fullness of existence. A light flicked in his eyes, illuminating a vast understanding. Every trial faced together amplifies your light instead of dimming it. You become a vessel of hope, capable of holding space not only for your struggles but for those aching to be seen. Underneath the tumultuous waves, an understanding began to weave through the disciples' hearts. In their moment of desperation, they discerned a deeper call. It wasn't merely about finding strength amidst external chaos, it was about unconditional lavish love that anchored them, girded them against the storm. Eager hearts longed for connection to that love, while trembling hands yearned for the exquisite freedom journeying with another could bring. As Peter looked around the room, recognition washed over him. They had borne witness to countless miracles and healing, but what lay dormant within their hearts were the very struggles that humanized their divine mission. It was the pain that anchored them to humanity, the doubts that wove threads of authenticity into their stories. What if we allow our brokenness to be our strength? He asserted, newfound vigor pulsing through him. The crowd continued to roar outside as if sensing the divine unfolding within the walls, yet here, amidst the flickering lamps and the charged silence, a truth unshackled itself together. They could traverse the shadows of their experiences and emerge into the light, a light with a true understanding of faith. John's eyes glimmered with urgency. So, we embrace the stories of our fears, sharing not only our victories but our vulnerabilities. It is in the telling that we light the way for others. The disciples nodded, an electric connection sparking to life. What once appeared daunting now looked like an invitation, a call to love endlessly, even amidst trials. Suddenly, a raucous crash echoed as the door was flung open. The crowd surged in, each face reflecting the very chaos they feared. Yet this time, something remarkable happened. Instead of flinching back, the disciples stood united, souls intertwined in unwavering support. Brothers and sisters. Peter's voice rang out above the commotion, fueled by resolve. What you see before you is not mere triumph but a tapestry woven from our trials. We stand here, not in perfection, but as ones who acknowledge our shadows. If we are to guide you, we must embrace our fears together. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. Where eyes once flared with hostility, there now glimmered curiosity. The crowd, facing the collective vulnerability of the disciples, began to soften and listen. Confidence surged within Peter as he continued. We have walked through despair and uncertainty, feeling the burden of loss and pain. It is in the acknowledgement of these shadows that we discover the light we are called to share. The cloaked figure stood back, observing the miracle unfolding, an awakening of community, a revelation that transcended fear. As the disciples extended their hands toward the crowd, a radiant light enveloped the room, mingling hope with shared suffering. Suddenly, feet began to step toward the warmth of honesty. The first voice from the crowd echoed, trembling yet brave. Will you hold our pain with yours? We seek understanding, not judgment. If you share your struggles, then perhaps we can find hope within our darkness too. The invitation rose, palpable and electric. Peter felt the fire of connection ignite. Yes. Together, we can traverse this storm. We are not meant to walk alone. Faith evolves at the crossroads of vulnerability and solidarity. One by one, they began to share their tales, fragments aimed towards healing and understanding, each story lending light to the strengthening bond. As the last echoes of discord drifted away, the disciples realized they had unknowingly woven a new narrative. The crowd transitioned from shouts of anger to murmurs of uncertainty, then gradually to soft cries of shared loss and redemption. Together, they embraced their common humanity, an awakening spirit bridging gaps previously believed insurmountable. In that holy space, a revelation unfolded, a stunning transformation of hearts. The shadows that once felt insurmountable now became reflections of resilience and grace. Love breathed life into their shared narratives, illuminating trails where darkness once reigned. The cloaked figure, witnessing the miraculous convergence of lives, bowed his head in reverence as the previous fear evaporated, replaced by acceptance and kinship. Through trials and authenticity, the disciples had become conduits of a light that would resonate far beyond their gathering. they had embodied a faith truly rooted in love, a faith that could face any storm, emerging ever stronger through its embrace of vulnerability. As dawn painted the blossoming sky with strokes of orange and gold, a powerful revelation coursed through each heart. Love, when shared in its deepest authenticity, revealed the divine, unearthing a relentless hope that could pierce any darkness. Reaching toward the broken and weary, with open hearts and newly kindled convictions, the disciples stood at the edge of their collective rebirth. In the sacred exchange of their truths, they had forged an unbreakable bond of promise to one another and the world that they would walk together, through every valley and shadow, into the unfathomable light that awaited beyond. In that moment, as they flung open their arms to embrace all awaiting within and beyond, they understood, true faith does not fear the shadows, it embraces them, welcoming light and darkness alike into the arms of a love that could never be extinguished. And with that, their journey, one intertwined with the stories of countless souls, had only just begun.